We just have to look at our story. Maximilian Kolbe changed places with that father of a number of children. He gave his life, a supreme act of love, so that this dad would survive. And he did. His dad survived and returned to his family. We can think of the martyrs. We can think of many people who literally or figuratively have laid down their life for others. And you are the ones I love. You are my friends. You are my friends. Or, you are the ones I love. Very personal, frighteningly so in some ways. Interestingly, the word in Greek here is philos. It has an emotional quality to it. Just as the word friend used to have an emotional quality to us. Phrion, the old act from which friend comes, phrion meant to love. So your friend is somebody that you do love. It was used of Lazarus, remember? And used of the beloved disciple, the one Jesus loved. Of course it's okay to speak of ourselves as servants, especially in what we do for the Lord, or we do for others, but we are far more than servants when we think of how Jesus wants us to think. We are beloved, God's beloved and beloved friends of Jesus. We have been specially chosen, we are beloved, and we ourselves are called to love one another. And in all that, in doing that, if we can only do that, we'll bear a lot of fruit. Our lives will be immensely fruitful. Now finally, the fourth section we're going to look at is that last second half of 15, beginning of chapter 16, the world's hatred for Jesus and the disciples, the sufferings we're going to face. In this section, Jesus addresses the community's relationship with the outside world now. The previous section spoke of the love that characterizes the inner life of the community. Now we're going to speak about hatred and persecution, which mark the community's relationship with the world. And here is a little bit of parallel with the eschatological discourse. And can I just pick a few little common themes? In verse 18, if the world hates you, bear in mind that it hated me before you. In Matthew chapter 10 we read, you will be hated by all because of my name. In verse 20, they will persecute you. Matthew 10, when they persecute you. Verse 26, the Paraclete will bear witness on my behalf. Matthew 10, the Spirit of your Father will speak through you. Verse 27, you too shall bear witness. Matthew 10, you will be dragged before governors and kings to bear witness. Chapter 16 verse 1, to prevent your faith from being shaken. Matthew 24, the faith of many will be shaken. 16 verse 2, they're going to put you out of the synagogues. In Matthew 10, they will flog you in their synagogues. Now, I sort of spent a few moments there looking at how the themes of John are in the eschatological discourse, especially of Matthew chapter 10 and chapter 24. Because the way it's put together in John can seem so different from the Synoptic Gospels, but they're speaking about the same realities always. So, this is not something new. This is in all the Gospels what Jesus is saying here. All this talk of the world's hatred, now, John puts it a little bit more strongly perhaps than the Synoptics, but it just sounds so negative, or it can sound so negative, can sound like a little bit of a cult activity too. We're the goodies, you're the baddies out there. Shades of Jonestown, and it doesn't sound as though it's very life-affirming. But we've got to remember that John is trying to understand why the Jewish people, the Jewish authorities, rejected Jesus and executed him, and why the synagogue continues with its attitude of hostility, and why the Romans also were very hostile to the Christian community. So John sees it very dramatically. Love is the essence of Christianity. Hatred is the essence of the world. The world rejects the whole culture of love. The world is challenged by any community which tries to live in a loving way. I think we've experienced a little bit of that in some ways by looking at how Christian communities in the Middle East are being challenged, even though they are most loving communities. And some Islamic communities too are being challenged. They're trying to live their faith simply, but no, they're being challenged. They're being hated and persecuted. The world doesn't really like people who are different and who live by different standards, especially if they're higher standards, especially if they shine out in some way and by their very lifestyle threaten the world. It happens to minorities. So, just to conclude, we've done 4 things in this lecture. We've looked at the magnificent style, the magnificent piece of literature that is the farewell speech of Jesus. Then in chapter 14, we've looked at the original last discourse, which covers the words of Jesus, which are so dear to us all. I am the way, the truth and the life. If you love me, you'll keep my commandments. Peace is my gift to you. Then we looked in the 3rd section of today at the vine and the branches, with its message of love. In the 4th and final section, we've looked at the relationship of the burgeoning Christian community to the world outside, with the inevitable lack of comprehension and even hostility. Thanks, everybody. The other day we looked at the foot washing by this man, Siga Kurta, and this is just the Last Supper from 1989. Now this one is most interesting. There's an actor, it's from the Philippines, there's an actor there, but the 12 disciples, apostles, are all street kids. It's quite moving.